Well, welcome to the Blue Family News Q&A series. Our latest session with Kim Triplett-Kolerich, who I will introduce shortly. But this is the series that is brought to you by the Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha. We have had some great conversations, and we're definitely going to have one today. For those that care, my name is Ken Bader. I have the privilege of running the POCUA and being the facilitator for the Blue Family News Q&A series. And as I mentioned, we have a great guest today, a great expert, and her name is Kim Triplett-Kolarich, and she has over 25 years of experience with the Washington State Patrol. She's been a sergeant, a detective, a trooper, and probably a few other positions that we're not going to talk about yet. But most importantly, not only does she understand law enforcement, she is a co-founder and principal of Sheepdog Resume, and she's going to talk to us about some of the challenges that our law enforcement and law enforcement families have today in possibly moving out of law enforcement into another career. Kim, welcome to the show, or welcome to the session, I should say.
Thank you, Ken. It's an honor to be here with you guys today.
It was an honor to talk to you again. We had such a great conversation on Public Safety Talk Radio. We're happy to bring you back for this and answer some questions from the crowd and help out the members of Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha. But let's go ahead and get started with the obvious question, which really ties into Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha, is that Sheepdog Resume was founded by a Blue family, for the Blue family. And that is, if not the most important tenet to Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha, definitely one of the top three. So tell us more about your Blue family.
So my Blue family is, I'm third generation police officer. I'm, again, retired Washington State Patrol. I currently have 3 family members that are in the profession right now, different levels. My cousin is, I'm very proud of my cousin in the Midwest, who's actually the chief of a local police department, where he raised up through the ranks of officer and did every single rank possible there. And I'm very proud of him. His father actually died in the line of duty. That's my uncle.
Sorry.
And then a couple other cousins are in local law enforcement around the Seattle area with me. And so, and then Christina's family, my spouse, she's from Chicago. So they have, she had also an uncle die in the line of duty, kind of an odd coincidence that we both have. And then she has an aunt who's retired down in Florida now that was a great detective with Chicago PD, and she's 4th generation law enforcement as well. So it's in my blood. My grandpa's brother was one of the first Spokane PD officers over in the opposite side of my state. And it's always run through my family. And so it's been that and union throughout my entire life.
So is it safe to say that you know maybe a little bit about the law enforcement personality and mindset?
I might know just a little bit about that. Yeah. And that's why I love to give back, right? This whole sheepdog story started as a give back of how blessed I have been in my career, how well the Washington State Patrol treated me throughout my career. And then when I left and when I retired, the opportunities that my prior career had given me to blossom and use my skills in the best way possible, it's been a blessing. And so because of that, we wanted to give back. And this is the best way that I think I can do that.
Yeah, it's a great way of putting it. And I know that you and your spouse are giving back a ton and doing some great work. However you want to look at it right now, there are a number of law enforcement professionals that are leaving that profession and starting other careers. Some that aren't just simply going into some of the usual, which is security work, but looking for whole new careers in the private sector. So when a law enforcement professional wants to begin a new career, I know from you that their resume really needs to translate that experience and expertise from what I guess we call police language into business language. Can you tell us a little bit about what that process looks like?
Yeah, so what we do is we start by talking to the client. So they find us through many different ways. This would be one of them. But they come to us, and the first thing we need to do is I need to find out who they are, right? Like, what is their skill set? So we'll go through I have literally a conversation with them where I'm taking copious notes from just about, depending on the day they were born, all the different jobs they've ever had, but mostly dive into their careers. And I worry about whether or not I don't worry, but I ask them if do they have an education? Because probably 90% of the jobs want a 4-year degree. So if you don't have any schooling, but I kind of work with them on maybe that's a little more benefit, stay there a little while, do that. But mostly it's just getting out of them what they've ever done. And most of the problem is that cops don't know how to translate even that communication with me into what they've done. They all want to talk about, I joke, but I saw a guy's resume a couple weeks ago who said, I can't find a job to save my soul. And I'm a really great cop. And I said, okay, well, let me see your resume. And he had stuff on there like shot 500 in qualification rounds for,
Yeah.
for 7 years in a row. And he's the commander of the SWAT team. And he was the head of door entries for, the 17 search warrants and caught, 5,000 pounds of drugs. Nobody cares about that outside of your own law enforcement. That's a beer drinking, I can one up you game thing, but not on a resume.
Wait a minute, are you saying that Google and Microsoft don't care about all that stuff?
Maybe on their security team, if you were going to, but I'm pretty sure Microsoft and Google do not carry AR-15s to make shooting rounds. Yes, they don't need snipers on their campuses. So those skills need to translate in a different way. So we'd be talking about your discipline. We'd be talking about your leadership skills and timing and all kinds of other things, and collaboration with others and team building. That's what we need to do, not the score of your range shooting every single time, and what level of marksman are you. That's the stuff that they just don't get. And so as soon as I see resumes like that, I go, oh, okay, I get it now. Let's talk for 20 minutes. Let's find out what really has happened in your career. And then we'll rewrite it, and they'll go, holy cow, that's me. And yeah. And talking about, the world right now, there's a lot of things that are, quote, against law enforcement. And that is basically the whole defund police started right after George Floyd. Well, kind of exacerbated. George Floyd exacerbated what was already kind of an underlying issue of anti-law enforcement. And I go back to that's a little bit more anti-hold people accountable, but that's me. And then now it's gone to not only we going to depolice, but we're going to take away a lot of law enforcement benefits. And in the state of Washington and others, a lot of things have been taken away of our ability to try to take someone to custody, do hands-on an arrest. A lot of the things around my gun belt have been taken away from us, and a lot of the decisions that we have to make. And we can argue point by point all day long, but the bottom line is that the people that are coming to us feel like they're pardon the phrase, they're under fire from the world to get out of this profession.
I was a little bit remiss at the beginning of our session in letting all the people know that are live with us that we want questions from you. So please, by all means, you can unmute yourself, or you could also write a question in the chat. So I will get to those questions shortly, right after this particular question, which is simply going back to especially the resumes and so forth. And you may have already covered it, but I think that it's important to really center on this. What is maybe the one or two biggest mistakes that you see from a resume standpoint when an officer is leaving law enforcement and wants to get into the private sector?
It's knowing how to translate our specific jargon, right? Like you have a specific jargon for that. The banking institutions have certain jargons for what they do. And if you can't communicate that and make that translation into speak that resonates with the company, and you don't even know if you fit the required or desired traits and skill sets that they want on their application, that's number one. You have to be able to know what you do bring to those other jobs, the career move. And then the other thing is that a lot of times they think I'll say this nicely, they think they're better than what they are and that they can go for like a program manager or a different levels within companies, but they don't have the skill set yet. They believe they do. So they'll send us resume links or job links to, hey, can you apply for us for this position? And they're only looking at the dollar figure.
Right.
And so they're like, oh, this person makes 125 grand a year. That's what I was making in policing. So I need to make that now. And so they'll send us something and we're like, okay, but here's this part. I'm cutting it out to you. I'm sending it back to you. You tell me how you ever had that skill set. Because most of those skill sets are not law enforcement related. I don't even have those skill sets. And so they're like, oh, I didn't look at that. I'm sorry, I should have read that. So then we have a lesson of how to read. That most of them don't even know how to read a job posting on Indeed or a LinkedIn post, right? To know what's out there or where to go. So those are some of the teaching moments that we have with them. And again, we make in the Pacific Northwest, and again, I know other places don't, but in the Pacific Northwest, we make a really nice salary for our job and for what we do. And they also believe that once they quit, that they're going to be able to make that in the private sector. And that's not normally the case at all. Depending on where you work in the country and the type of work you do, of course, but most of the time you're not going to match your county or city salary to what's out there in the civilian world. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to what it used to be, right? Like corporate America is supposed to make $1 million. And everybody also believes Amazon makes at least 175 for every person and all these stock options. And that's not true. So the misconception of how much people make. And again, when you apply for a job, if you apply for a county, city, state job, they have to post, right? I've always seen they post the dollar amount, but corporate America, they don't put that out there.
Right.
But there's a perception that they're always six figures or better. And that's not what I have found.
Yeah, that's not the case. And yeah, when you're on Indeed or LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter or whatever the heck it is, there is this little section called requirements that you probably should be required to read. From the audience, any questions that you may have from Kim, especially as it may be related to the Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha region of Nebraska, Iowa, and South Dakota, and what you're seeing?
Well, first off, Kim, I'd like to thank you. I know you were a sponsor for the NAWP conference. That was just about a month ago.
Yes.
We were a sponsor as well. They did a fantastic job at relaying your information, and so I wanted to pass that along. And we certainly appreciate you being with us today. Do you feel that LinkedIn is a viable option for when you're looking for a job, or what do you think that maybe the top 3 search engines out there are?
Good question.
That's a great question. And Mary, let me take 1 second and just say, I randomly found that. I don't know. I can't even remember what I was Googling because Christina asked me, how did you get to the Omaha Women's Police Conference? And I'm like, I don't know. I was just doing my Google thing and it came up. And
everybody secretly really wants to be in Omaha. That's what it is.
Yes. And so then I reached out to just the basic email address for contact, got a hold of Jessica, who happens to also be small world. The Blue family is very small, actually. Her cousin is a very good friend of mine and a former Porter, Seattle police officer. So her and I had that in common. And then I couldn't make it out because I had double booked myself. So what I wanted to do again was pay it forward for my fellow Blue sisters. And we sponsored 5 gals that probably their agency would not have been able to pay for them to be there. And we actually paid more than I would have paid had I had a vendor booth out there. And I think that's more important to have people in the seats to network with their own Blue sisters than to have a vendor booth. So we were, again, it's cheesy, but we're beyond blessed. I believe in the credit union. Back to your question, LinkedIn. A lot of cops don't like to have social media. It's also a great way to get yourself in trouble with your agency if you choose to put your own personal opinion out there when you're wearing a shoulder patch or you're always speaking for the agency you work for, right? So people have a hard time trying to make that distinction. But LinkedIn, I feel, is the gold mine for And I tell everybody, and that's one of the things that we make sure everybody has, is to have a LinkedIn. My philosophy on life is go big or go home. So when I have an account, if I have a LinkedIn page and I want to go look up other investigators that have prior law enforcement, I'll go in there and private note them and say, hey, I want to talk to you. I've actually done that for our company. I've got a hold of about 7 bigwigs at different companies and said, hey, this is the company we have. I want to know what you are looking for in the skills of a police officer, so that if I do have somebody, how can I increase their skills with what you're looking for, and how would you see that translation done? And they're actually shocked that I reach out to them, but I'm trying to help build a better resume for great detectives that are trying to retire and want to go into financial investigations or whatever else is out there, and want to know how that, what the translation is and what the words are that that company wants to see in resumes and how that would translate. So LinkedIn is my good go-to. And I also know that I've never had a police officer, when I've ever tried to note them that, or private message them, they've never turned me down. Because again, we are Blue family, we want to pay it forward. And if they have an opportunity to help lead somebody to another great career like they have, they're willing to do that. So I tell everybody to have a LinkedIn. My understanding of ZipRecruiter, or I like Glassdoor, because Glassdoor has a great section on the backside of all the questions that you're probably going to be asked during an interview. It's like the top 50 questions. And I send that link to every one of our clients and say, go review that. We also run them through a mock oral board, because cops don't know how to interview for anything other than another cop job. So if you're looking for an interview job with a financial institution for an investigator position or physical security or something like that, you don't know how to answer questions. You don't know how to sit in an interview, and literally gets that elementary with people. So Glassdoor is a great place to go get some of that advice. My understanding about Indeed and some of these others that we have found has actually had stale information on there. So somebody will send us a link, and then Christina will go in and try to get the desired skills and everything, and the position's been closed for 2 weeks. So I'm not a big fan of that one. If you want to work for a certain company, go on to their LinkedIn, and then their LinkedIn will have all those jobs too. So that's where we try to get people to go. I think it's and it's like an algorithm thing that Indeed does. I'm not exactly sure what that's called when they just try to link everything together, but I think that's more for data mining of people's information, but that's just me. But yeah, LinkedIn is fantastic for networking, for fellow police officers to help out.
I know we've really made a conscious effort to be out on LinkedIn, just because, like you spoke, so many officers have pulled back on their social media accounts because of issues, and I've received a very good response using LinkedIn. So thank you for your opinion.
That's a great point on LinkedIn. I've personally found through my work in the POCUA that it may be difficult on other platforms to connect with police officers, first responders, especially those that are running some type of business, not-for-profit or for-profit. But LinkedIn is one place, you know, like you mentioned, Kim, you could do a private message, and they seem to if you write the message properly, like you're not trying to sell them something, you do get a response. There are groups in there where you could talk amongst yourselves. And also, I find in general that it and LinkedIn, it's not as political, it's not as opinion charged. It's just simply about business and networking. And I think that may be, not being in law enforcement myself, I think that there may be a certain comfort level for law enforcement professionals on that particular platform.
I agree with you. And one of the things that I've actually seen is that people will actually call each other out if they do that. And that person gets put down quite quickly about that. This is not the platform for that. Go find other platforms. But yeah, I think having a LinkedIn where you can actually private message somebody, so they're not having your contact information right away, and you can actually have that dialogue almost like a texting chat. I think that's where LinkedIn has really come a long way from a couple of years ago. And again, when I reach out to people, I literally tell them, I am not looking for a job. Look at this website, and here's what I would like to know. Because I think sometimes they're kind of wondering if I'm trying to circle around a job interview to get them. And I'm not. I love the career that I have right now. So I'm trying to better my clients. And so that's why I do that. And again, I've had positive response from several companies that I've done that with. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've found that as well. Are you seeing, granted, obviously you're based in Washington and in the Seattle area, and I won't go into some of the unique challenges of that particular area. But are you seeing, because obviously I know that you work with law enforcement professionals nationwide, are you seeing an increase in people looking for jobs outside of law enforcement, more so in some states than others?
So I would say the demographic of our clients is about 40% not Washington. That's where I do my outreach, is when I go to conferences. Like I'm a member of the Fraternal Order of Police. And so I'll go across the country. So I will go wherever. We literally have clients right now from all federal, state, city, county, and from coast to coast. That the guy in Virginia and the guy in Omaha has the same complaint everywhere. It's just that undercurrent of not feeling safe within your own agency, not knowing right now. And again, I'm not going to get political, but it's a fact. Minneapolis is about to be completely not a police department, but a public safety thing, right? Even their police chief the other day said that. So if I worked in that city, I'd be considering having my resume done so that I can bounce as soon as it becomes something that doesn't work for me. And if they're going to go and do, I don't understand how this would work, but this, again, the article that I read, they're going to go anti or no police and do something else, then your pension needs to be held. So you need to have a resume. You need to get ahead of everybody else in the Minneapolis Police Department that's going to go look for another career in the private sector or move to another city. I have a lot of police officers right now that want to move, that still want to do law enforcement, and they're moving to places like Texas and Florida that they believe have a different culture for law enforcement. I would hazard to say that they're one George Floyd away from being the exact same as every other place, God forbid. But it's not really changing. You know, there's still different cities and different areas that we need to change a lot of things in law enforcement for, but they are all coming to us with the same set of, my spouse has told me I need to get out. I've turned into a really bad person at home. I'm grumpy all the time, blah, blah, blah. And the other part that says to me is, when you're out there on the street, you don't have your head in the game. And if you don't have your head in the game, you're going to get hurt. And it doesn't have to be, you know, shot by somebody. You can get run over by a car trying to put out a set of spike strips or other things that have happened to cops when they're just not paying attention. So, and a lot of spouses actually reach out to us and say, my spouse won't leave. They need to leave. I want you to do their resume, and I don't want you to call them. I'll tell you everything you want to know about their career.
That always works out well when the
table,
spouse just says, you know,
can you see the dinner table? Hey, honey, I had this done for you. Here's your new resume, and you're going to go get a new job. You know, it's kind of how I kind of see that happening. But I think it's come to that point for some where the spouses can see the toxic nature of their spouse, and it's really affecting the kids and everybody in their lives. And so they're trying to be very helpful, and I honor that. I think that's really good. So yeah, across the country, different agencies, there's just a lot of I need to go. And some are actually doing the crazy thing of going and then not having a job. And it's been a few months and they're not able to get a job because they're trying to do their own resume. And then they come to us super desperate, want to go from 41st to 1st. And I'm like, that's not how we work. I'm sorry that you left and thought you could get a job right away, but I can't put you on first. You're gonna have to wait. So,
well, as we kind of segue to our closing here, I do want to talk about Police Federal Credit Union Omaha for just 1 second and put Mary on the spot as it relates to resumes and changing careers and so forth. One, fortunately, for both Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha and their members, just because you leave that profession, Or if you were, I guess, fortunate enough to have a similar job in Dallas or so forth, Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha can still serve as your primary financial institution. Mary, are you seeing any of that in Nebraska, Iowa, or South Dakota, where people, because I know people are coming to you when they change jobs because addresses change and so on and so forth. Are you seeing a lot of that in the tri-state area of who you serve, or is that not as prevalent there?
Oh, yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of it. You know, it appears that maybe for command staff, it's a little easier for them to move about because they do have those leadership skills, and they've just, that position gives them that information and those qualities, and they know how to verbalize that. So your rank and file are the ones that are really, and they're the ones that are still out on the street. And yeah, they need a lot of help. I'm seeing people change. A lot of them are trying to hang in there till they have their minimum time in so they can retire. But they are retiring and they are getting out, and they may stay in a government job. They may stay in an investigative position, but they're not law enforcement anymore. They're done, which I certainly understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the thing that in the leadership stuff, and again, I rose to the rank as sergeant, and we had some leadership training, but I have several friends that are chiefs of police, and I know what my cousin has been through going through the FBI National Academy. And the thing that I want to touch on, networking is one of the best things that you can possibly do. We touched on it on LinkedIn, but what I tell people is stay around. And again, the FBI National Academy classmates, they're kind of like when I went through the academy. My classmates will always be my brethren. And so if you've got a National Academy friend who's already left and is going to a great job somewhere in a leadership role at this new company, reach out to them. Say, hey, I've got the same thing. We all understand the pain of staying in this career right now and what we're going through, and say, hey, how did you make the transition? What did you do? What did you find in your resume was the most impacting for this new company that you're working for? The other thing that I would tell people is don't have a stale resume. If you haven't taken a cell phone class or you don't have social media, so you don't understand the jargon in social media or how drug dealers and others communicate on social media, you need to take some classes, because you can't just be a line officer and go expect to get another career somewhere else if you don't have technology in your background and in your resume, because everything is online. Everything is by computer now. And so you have to be able to know how to navigate through those websites of social media to understand that. Don't be afraid of it. It actually is going to be your friend. I find a lot of stuff out there, people will just barf out their whole life there. And you're like, thank you, fish on, I got a new client, right? So, I mean, it's crazy. And that's one of the things that we also do. And we talked on this before. We will help scrape somebody's Facebook or Instagram or whatever if they've gone off the what I refer to as off the rails on their social media comments. What they forget is that's actually showing the future employer just exactly who this wild card person is that they already don't know. And if you're talking politically on either spectrum, it doesn't matter that you can't represent the police credit union and have that job, because you're speaking for them even when you're on social media. I learned that from day one. Everything I say, do I want it on the front of the Seattle Times newspaper, and on the front of the New York Times and the LA Times? And do you want that representation of the Washington State Patrol? No. But people tend to forget that when they start being the keyboard warriors and spouting whatever their position is. And that's not acceptable in corporate America or any other profession. So, and you get into these big companies and they expect you to, which is right, to always represent them. I have to tell people, you need to go delete that account, and you have to hope that that you're not now start saying some nice things about certain people, so that you can kind of clean up what you've already screwed up.
Just
Right.
just talk about your granddaughter, and that's all you need to post on Facebook.
Exactly.
Nobody will be pissed about that. But
I don't even care if they're fake pictures. Don't put anything negative about the world that would misrepresent you. And Mary, I know you understand what I'm saying, right? I mean, you're representing the credit union. You can't have your employees going rogue and having that as a backlash to your company. That just doesn't work.
Exactly.
And people tend to forget that when they get passionate about whatever their position on certain topics are.
For folks out there, especially in Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha's field of membership of Nebraska, Iowa, and South Dakota that could really use your help in transitioning in some level, how can they best find you and Sheepdog Resume out there?
So it's really easy. It's www.sheepdogresume.com, and they can go on there and look at our website. We've had so many new clients. I don't have all the shoulder patches or badges for every agency that we work for, but that's my most important section, is to show just the cross section of how many different agencies we've helped, to say, oh yeah, they've already done a county sheriff, or oh yeah, they've already done an FBI guy, or what have you, right? So, and also it's confidential. Nobody's going to know. A lot of people are concerned that we're going to go to the company or we're going to go get your training records. No, you do that and you give them to us. And I don't tell anybody else it's, oh, I had so-and-so that also got their resume done by us. That doesn't happen. That's really, people are trying to like keep it quiet that they want to go or what have you. So we do not share anything. We will respond back within 24 hours. And remember, sometimes the time difference of 3 hours is a big deal because I am in Seattle. But we will immediately respond back and we will help you through the entire process. And the only thing I would add is, I am not a job placement agency. I help you write your resume. I help you interview for any positions. We'll run you through a mock interview. We'll do a lot of things for you, but I don't have the bandwidth to try to find you a career. I have a full-time job and a 17-year-old very athletic son. So there's no time for finding people jobs, but we can help guide you to different places and help you network, but reach out and network with your own people that you know. And try to find your own job that you want. And that will make it much easier. If you actually have a relationship with somebody in the local community, hey, maybe I want to go work for that guy when I get done or what have you, reach out, go big or go home. All they can do is say no. That's what I tell my kid all the time. If you don't ask, it's a guaranteed no. And maybe they've got a position coming up in the future, like a month away, that you're not aware of. It hasn't been posted yet, that you'd be great for. Go open that door for yourself. That's my best advice.
Yeah. Awesome advice, an awesome conversation, Kim. Thank you so much for what you're doing for law enforcement, for your service, and particularly spending some time with us today.
It was fantastic.
Thank you again, and thank you to all of you that are watching this recording of the Blue Family News Q&A series from Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha. And I know we're already planning a new session coming up real soon, so hope you can join us then. Thank you for watching the Blue Family News Q&A series, brought to you by Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha. To learn more about Police Federal Credit Union of Omaha, go to opfcu.net.